Hello and welcome to the Genuine Learning blog. My name is Melissa Galasso, and we're going to continue our conversation from last week talking about proposed ethics interpretations. Last week we talked about tax services. This week we're going to talk about recruiting. Both of them came out early last week, and we wanted to make sure that we address them. So this proposed revised interpretation on executive employee recruiting 1.295.135 was issued on June 10th, and it is part of the IESBA convergence project. So the IESBA has been looking at non-assurance services, or what they call NAS, in order to evaluate and update. And the AICPA felt like, hey, ours hasn't been updated in over 20 years, so maybe it could also use a little bit of update. And this really focused on recommending a person for a potential position, as well as advising on the terms of employment and payment areas. So as they go through this. So one of the biggest changes here is it adds additional threats, familiarity, and undue influence to the list of threats created by providing these services. However, I think where most people will note changes is in what is permitted versus not permitted. There's a lot more I would say clarifications here, right? As you can see here, advise on the general terms of employment, right? So as opposed to solicit and screen candidates. Search for or seek out candidates for non-key positions. You'll notice that they clarify between key and non-key positions as you go through this. Again, those key positions are the people you're going to be working with as you go through. Review candidate resumes provided by the client to identify those that meet the attest client's criteria. Interview candidates and advise on candidates' competence for a position. So if someone says, hey, how's their level of gap? Recommend, it used to say qualified candidates plural, but they clarified more than one candidate. You cannot recommend a single candidate. Must be more than one. If it is solely one that meets the criteria, then you have to really evaluate those threats. However, they also very much elaborated on what is not acceptable and no safeguard can overcome. And so in order to strengthen the code, prohibitions were added around key positions in particular. And again, in some scenarios, just nobody being able to provide it, negotiating with the client on behalf of the attest client, just so much management participation threat there. So again, you cannot hire or terminate a client, an employee, advise on the specific terms of employment, remuneration, or related benefits for a key position, search for or seek out candidates for a key position, undertake reference checks of prospective candidates for a key position. So again, I think this is going to be very interesting. Recommend to the client only one candidate for consideration for a key position, again, that plural consideration. But negotiate with the client on behalf of the attest client. That is prohibited for key and non-key. Or committing the client to employee compensation or benefit. Again, that is a management responsibility. That is a human resource, and that would be a huge violation of the independence rules. So PEEC is currently recommending January 1st of 2026 with the ability to early adopt to give some time for implementation here. Comments are due September 10th of 2024. You can email ethics-exposuredraft@aicpa.org to share your thoughts on, is this going to really be more helpful to people who didn't really know where they were crossing the line. I get a lot of people who are like, well, they want me to help pick the CFO. I know all the gap requirements, the CEO does not. And so I think this really clarifies what you can and cannot do for key positions versus non-key positions. And I think that they're trying to make some improvements, but maybe you see opportunities for more improvements, or maybe a place where you think that they erred. I am sure PEEC would love to hear from you in both of those scenarios. All right, so that's a wrap on this week's blog. I hope to see you on a future blog. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.